Thank you for joining us for this session. The RewirEdX virtual conference could not come at a more important time, offering a vital opportunity to marshal expertise and to leverage commitment from key development actors to accelerate progress on education, youth, skills, and the future of work. I'm Inés Yábar, moderator, Senior Campaigns Coordinator at Restless Development, and I will be your moderator with Nashwa.
Thank you, Inés. Hello, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here with you today. I'm Nashwa Mohammed, youth researcher from Restless Development Organization. Let me start off by stating some facts. This year, almost 90% of the world's countries shut down their schools in an attempt to combat COVID-19 and to reduce its transmission. The Malala Fund organization estimates that 20 million girls will never return back to classrooms again. This is an issue that needs urgent collaborative action to rewire education and to achieve decent work for all young people. Back to you, Inés.
Welcome to everyone to our breakout session. It's titled, It's Our Future, Reimagining Education and Work for Young People in the Post-Pandemic World. And we have a great lineup of youth speakers and partners who will be sharing key findings and recommendations on education and work, and also on building forward in a post-pandemic world. We have people from Brazil to Tunis to global researchers. And Nashwa will be able to tell you a bit more about our partners.
We will also hear from multiple partners on the best partnerships in a post-pandemic world that will achieve relevant education and work for young people. But before we start, I want to encourage everyone to use the chat box to share with us from which country are you tuning in today.
We're sure there are many people joining us from around the world, and we have the privilege today to introduce to you Bonnie and Jimena from Colombia, both part of La Mucura, who will be singing a song called Cruje in Spanish. They were both youth researchers for Restless Development, and they're going to share their art with us today. Bonnie and Jime, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. It's a privilege for us to be a part of this platform. It's been great working with Restless Development as researchers. We're from Colombia. We're a arts, research, and activism collective. Right now, we're in Argentina, and we're just really happy to be with you all today. I'm Bonnie.
I'm Jime, and we want to share with you this song called Cruje. Cruje has not a literally translation, but it's the sound that produces the seed, for example, when decide to be a tree. It's a mix between the thunder and the crack that makes when the bombs are growing up. And for us, the education is in a moment that needs to go to the other step, to other moment. And the sound of the transformation is the crack. And this song is called Cruje, come on, this moment of transformation.
El trueno cruje. El árbol, el cuerpo también cruje. Y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha de un día de sol, y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha de enfrentarse a estos tiempos con conciencia que en ellos habita la infinidad. huesos y el corazón
también crujen.
Y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha de un día del sol, y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha
de enfrentarse a estos tiempos, aún conscientes que en ellos habita la infinita posibilidad de crear lo sublime y lo bello, y entregarse a estos tiempos, aún conscientes de miedo, y abrazar la infinita posibilidad de vivir lo sublime y lo bello, y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha de un día de sol, y que sienta la dicha que habita en lo amado, y que sienta la dicha, y que sienta la dicha, y que sienta la dicha.
When these sounds happen, we hope that the road feels the happiness to be loved and to love.
Wow, thank you so much for the amazing song. I think we all felt your energy, indeed. Thank you so much. Truly, we know that the best insights are the insights that come from young people themselves. Now, we will hear from two young people from Tunisia and the employment specialists from the International Labour Organization who are going to key findings and recommendations on education and the future of work. But first, let's all watch this video from the Youth at Heart Research, and next we will have Wiam Shamsi from Tunisia, a youth researcher from Restless Development. So stay tuned.
I am Maria, Lebanon. I am one of 12 young researchers leading a peer-to-peer research project looking into resilience to COVID-19, education and the future of work, and youth voices. We are asking young people in the MENA, Sahel, and East and Horn of Africa, how can we build back better? How they want to be educated, and how their voices can be strengthened and heard in society.
Youth, as a dynamic power of innovation and creation, has been leading the way with outstanding initiatives and solutions during the corona outbreak. Their efforts need to be recognized.
Their insights and knowledge should inform the decisions that affect their lives and the lives of their communities.
All right, we can have Wiam now. Thank you for that video. You can go ahead.
Okay, so hello, I'm Wiam. I'm one of the 12 young researchers. I led the research in Tunisia and I reached to youth peers whose education and work got disrupted by COVID-19. I spoke to them because the educational system doesn't prepare them enough to the job markets because the curricula don't reflect the reality on the ground, and the shift to virtual learning was neither adequate nor accessible to everyone. So young people are calling governments, private sector, NGOs leaders, and decision makers, including youth, to prioritize access to quality education as a means for social justice, recognize their will and right to access suitable learning opportunities, to respond to changing markets and modern needs by building effective education and work systems that provide young people with the key skills to ensure their employability, such digital skills, soft skills, and entrepreneurship. Also take their responsibility to create decent work for young people by creating opportunities such paid internships, mentorships, and equal opportunity to finance young entrepreneurs. And also make sure to include young people at all levels of decision making and partner with them to build more resilient and better world for all generations without excluding everyone, and by reimagining quality, modern, and quality education for all of us. We are in the middle of a global learning crisis where digital learning should be an essential service. In fact, the world is off track in meeting its educational commitments by 2030, but I'm sure together we can reshape better quality education and better future to all of us. And finally, I'm very excited to highlight that our key findings were crafted under a principal document that were endorsed by the World Bank, UNICEF, and the UN Youth Envoy during the Youth at Heart virtual forum organized by the Dutch Minister for Foreign Affairs. So if our recommendation speaks to you, join our call. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Daniel, I'd like to go to you next. Daniel is coming to us from Brazil, and I'd like to know, what is youth civil society in Latin America saying on youth employment, education, and resilience? And what are some key recommendations you could bring? Over to you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Such a pleasure to be here. I've been working on two main questions in the last months, Inés, and the first one is how youth civil society is facing the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm one of the co-researchers from Restless Development, approaching the situation here in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, with a special look in favelas. And here, youth is at the forefront of the fight against the virus, organizing and leading grassroots movements called Crisis Cabinet to mobilize, for example, from the food donation and hygiene supplies up to food baskets and information in the midst of scientific denial and ignorance. That's our government approach to the crisis. So, but despite of the laudable effort of young organizations and youth leaders, we are going to be disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 because of the measures to stop and prevent the dissemination of the virus. The virus is changing how we access learning spaces and education, and also changing the way we access resources as income and jobs. Youth from favelas, according to the Central Union of Favelas, have faced a decrease of income up to 80% or a complete loss before the financial aid from the federal government. They are also more than 20 million students out of school with no access at all to formal education, according to the Brazilian Senate. So despite of all the effort to preventing the crisis of the virus of spread and access to basic resources, youth is being disproportionately impacted by the indirect and social aspects of the pandemic. And to make sure that our efforts is recognized and we are not left behind from the creation of new realities and public policies to address access to income and access to education, we need to create an inclusive and innovative pathways across demographic geographies to connect those people with decision makers. The second question I've been worked on is proposed by Harvard University on the research on how COVID is changing education. And it's not only about the digital and social divide. It's about posing new important questions on if people are connected or not, what device they are using, what kind of connection they have, and for example, if they have access for a room or empty space on their home to study. And we have seen a lot of challenges across the region, but we have also good news. We can do more and we can do better. We just have to promote participatory and democratic learning methods, listen to student voices. And we need to invest in civil society, in learning from them to create solutions that are really effective and inclusive in the territories. So thank you so much, and I'm looking to hearing from the others.
Thank you so much. Indeed, Danielle, we can do more and we can do better. Very great insight. Thank you. Now, we will hear from Drew Gardner, the Youth Employment Specialist from International Labour Organization. Mr. Drew, could you please tell us what are the key findings on employment And what would be your main recommendation to address these issues? The mic is yours.
Yeah, sure. Great to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Nashwa, and greetings to viewers out there. And thanks, Daniel, for your remarks, and Riam as well for your remarks. I'm pleased and honored to be amongst such a class audience of young people doing fantastic work in this area, in this space. I myself, I'm a youth employment specialist at the International Labour Organization in Switzerland. I'm in my home, obviously, right now, close by Geneva. And yeah, we've really at the ILO been engaged in trying to help our member states, the development partners, assist them deal with the employment impacts of this crisis that we're in. I in particular work on issues related to youth employment, and it's really sad. It's really sad, and what's happening to young people. We ran a survey in April and May of this year when we had the first peak, and we ran that survey in 112 countries. We got back a massive amount of responses for young people, from young people, over 18,000 responses. And what we saw was deep, disproportionate, and massive impacts on the employment prospects of young people. One in 6 young people lost their job. 1 in 2 young workers had their hours cut. Another 50%, their incomes dropped. Those that were going to school, I mean, it's true that digitization and technology are helping, but we're far from there. We saw that 1 in 8 young people globally, their studies totally stopped. So that means no online classes, no exercises at home, no parents teaching them, nothing. So really drastic effects on young people. And what does this all mean? So what we'll observe here for this lockdown, COVID generation is a scarring effect. So we'll see that young people will be affected by this short, what can be 1 or 2 years of recession, of crisis for the rest of their lives. Scarring effect, we call it. So their wages will be impacted. Transition to employment will be impacted. And the message I want to give in this very short time that I have is young people need to engage. They need to continue to be present and put pressure on our authorities, so that the future is really shaped in the way that they want. And I really want to flag also the risks of technology, and digitization, because I think what we've seen now is, this emergence of the gig economy and the platform economy, and it's going to explode. It's going to take off, and young people aren't protected in there. They're not making good wages. It's not quality work. Usually, it's just a supplement to study education. And I think that the route that we're going, if we don't start passing some legislation, if young people don't start getting their voices heard, what they need, then I really see us going on a wrong path. I'm not saying it's all negative. I'm not saying it's all negative at all. Far from it. I mean, look at what we're able to do here today. Have a global audience from the corner of our little spaces in the world. So the ILO is thrilled to be here with you and engage on these issues and continue doing so. We're doing so, with Tijmen, with Anna, I hope with Restless Development a lot more, and I hope in the future we'll see some of these recommendations that the ILO is making come into fruition. Thanks a lot, moderator. Back to you. Over.
Thank you. It seems that we may have some technical difficulties. I cannot hear everyone, but I hope you can hear me. I would like to introduce Tijmen Rooseboom. He's the Ambassador for Youth, Education and Work at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for joining us, Tijmen. I wanted to ask you a question before you moderate this next section. My question is, what are the best partnerships for addressing education and the future of work for young people? And could you give us an example of that?
Thank you, Inés. Can you hear me? Just a quick technical test.
Yes.
Good. And also thank you, Nashwa, and for Drew, of course, for this interesting summary of the report as well. And thank you for actually starting off this panel, this session on highlighting the voice of young people and the challenges and opportunities that young people face. And it's really nice to know that everyone was able to see the video as well that Restless Development made with us, and I'll get back to that principal document, which was already discussed in a bit. So I'm Tijmen Rooseboom, a Netherlands Ambassador for Youth, Education and Work, and it is my job to increasingly integrate the perspective of young people into our international cooperation. This means we invest in the prospects of young people. This means in education, in youth employment. Our Minister for International Cooperation and Trade, Minister Kage, also launched a strategy called Youth at Heart, which focuses specifically on bridging this gap between the skills that young people learn and the jobs that are available or that young people need to create for themselves. I think it became very clear from what we just heard and from the recent research that education often does not prepare young people for the job market. It was, of course, specifically mentioned. So I guess this is why rewiring education, as we're discussing as well today and during this conference, is actually so important. And this is why, and that is an answer to your question, partnerships are so essential. Partnership with government, civil society, private sector, knowledge institute, it's everyone's business, as one of the themes is. So a part of this partnership, and this brings me to another very important point, is actually young people, especially now, right? The COVID-19 outbreak has really affected young people disproportionately, as Drew from the ILO also emphasized. But meanwhile, as I think Liam also indicated, young people show the innovation and solution that societies actually need. And youth-led initiatives are on the forefront of the response. So this makes it all the more relevant to actually make sure that within our response and within the work that we're doing, we listen to young people, to their ideas, experience, and involve them in decision-making processes, see them as partners and leaders. We tried to do that when in November, a month ago, the Netherlands organized the Youth at Heart Virtual Forum, in which we really tried to involve young people. We partnered with Restless Development and also with the ILO, who are present here, and other great partners that we have. And with Restless Development, we also really worked on trying to put the voice of young people from Africa and the Middle East, which are our focus regions, at the heart of our virtual forum. 12 young researchers, including VM and Nashwa, actually interviewed in our focus regions. And a principal document that came out of this was the outcome. It was focused on an enabling environment for education and work for young people, the involvement of young people at all levels in decision-making processes that affect their lives, and lastly, to partner with young people to build a better, more resilient world for all generations. These principles are a call to action, and we have already made this call, so it's better to hear from her than actually for me. But we need all relevant stakeholders to invest in the prospects of young people, and we need to do that in partnership with each other and in partnership with young people. So we are currently trying to strengthen, as the Netherlands, the voice of young people in our own work by creating a Youth Advisory Commission and by developing a meaningful youth participation toolkit. We're not there yet, but we're making steps. So we would like to thank Restless Development as well and all the young people involved in this great effort. So I'm going to make a bridge now to my role as a moderator, because it turns out that I'm also a moderator. We've heard from young people what the facts are, what their lived experiences are. We know what needs to be done. We know that we need partnerships from a broad array of stakeholders. We now actually have 4 different speakers that each practically contribute to partnerships to improve prospects of young people. So let me introduce you to Dr. Anna Barford, Prince of Wales Global Sustainability Fellow, University of Cambridge. Rema Kasule, founder, non-profit organization, Century Entrepreneurship Development Agency, so this is CEDA, International Senior Fellow. Drew Gardner, Youth Employment Specialist, we already heard him, at the ILO, and also working on the Global Initiative Decent Jobs for Youth. And VM Chamsi, who we also already heard, Youth Researcher for Restless Development. So I would like to ask all of them to broadly respond to what we've heard in the first part, including, for example, the Youth at Heart principles. But I also would like to ask you a specific question, and all of this within a very meager 3 minutes. So I would like to start, first of all, with Dr. Anne Barford. Thank you for being present. Could you tell us about the role, in your opinion, that knowledge institutions could actually play in partnerships on education and work for young people?
Of course, thank you, Tijmen, and also thank you to WM, Daniel, and Drew, and thank you to Restless Development for hosting this session. First of all, I'll respond to the first presentations, and then I'll move on to answer your question that's specifically for me. So, firstly, I'd just like to say some of the key highlights for me from what you presented. The need for inclusive, innovative, and flexible approaches to education. The types of approaches to education that mean if someone doesn't take a direct route from school through to work, but maybe has a different pathway because of forced migration, for instance, or having a child when they're still in the school years. Some of these routes mean that education can be stalled and then not restarted. So this flexible, innovative approach where someone can start and stop and dip back into education, I absolutely agree that's essential for stopping people becoming distanced from the education system and then not being able to return. I think you all set some very big challenges as well, and 2 of them which I just wanted to highlight. This challenge to leave no one behind. It's very serious. Drew has really emphasised the magnitude of the challenge we potentially face, and as well as the digitization bringing its own problems, it's also creating a huge divide. So many people actually don't have access to the facilities and the learning that has gone online. I think the other key point is this absolute need to shift the labour markets so there's a greater demand for young people's work. This is a 2-part problem. It's not only to do with the fact that we need to redress education and look at what's happening within educational systems. We also need to have much greater labour market demand for young people's work, so that when they arrive in the labour market, qualified and ready to work, that there's some decent jobs there available to them. And I think that emphasis that while maybe young people are creating some jobs, really this responsibility should fall on the shoulders of government and business, who are well positioned to create jobs and to create decent jobs. Okay, on to partnerships. So partnerships are all the rage now. They seem to be absolutely key to systemic change. If you want to make changes that influence many parts of the system, then working with organisations positioned differently is key. For me, working in a university, partnerships are really a key route to impact as well. Beyond writing for academic journals, which other academics and students read, it's critical to be able to communicate those findings and reflections with the world beyond. But the university does bring something as well, I'd like to argue. We bring a certain intellectual freedom and a political freedom to engage in very critical discourses and debates. People who've got particular funding streams might be less free to engage in. So we bring that kind of critical voice to the table. We also bring academic rigor. We can spend more time doing our research over longer time scales at times. We've also got that important role as tertiary educators. So the the things we research and the things that we reflect upon become the content of students' degrees. So I think that's also a really important point. And it's something that not only are we making partnerships outside the university, but also within the university. We're working together. We've got a new Decent Work and Youth Livelihoods group, which has been running for a couple of years in Cambridge, really drawing together people from the geography department, sociology, education and politics to try and understand this from kind of multiple perspectives. So what should universities do in this space? How should universities act and how should they build strong partnerships? Firstly, to reiterate what Tijmen said, we need to treat young people as partners. If we're thinking about who the most important partners, the most important stakeholders are, indisputably that's the young people involved in this. And it's been a delight to work with Restless Development with their youth-led research process, whereby young people are being trained to become researchers and to pose research questions and collect data and use that data to hold people to account. And to engage in that whole research process has really been an eye-opening process for me. It's also a responsibility to engage in pressing issues. There's many issues university researchers can address, but personally I would argue that it's important to engage the ones that are really causing some of the biggest challenges of the day, and I think the topic of this conference really is part of that. And
just the last point, please.
Last point. I'm sorry. So my last point was there's also a responsibility to find partners and work with partners and to design an impact into the work that we do. So we're thinking about how we're going to have an impact right from the start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barford. That was a very good sort of on the one hand on the distance to the education system, but also specifically on partnerships being all the rage. Well, I guess that is that makes a lot of sense because they are key for impact, as you said yourself. So thank you so much for that. I'll quickly move on to Rema, an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, I even read, who has actually trained a lot of young people as well in business and leadership skills. I mean, there was always this issue of the skills gap. I think the pandemic really made that issue even more prominent. So looking at this skills gap and looking at the type of skills that young people need, I was wondering if you could share your view on that and also on what the role could be of the private sector. And I do have to ask you to be quite short as well.
Yes, I'm going to be short. Thank you very much. I think for me, one of the key questions and highlights from the previous speakers is the fact that we can't design and plan for the youth without them. That's so critical. They are players in shaping their destiny. That's number one. Secondly, for me, it's about rewriting the narrative. Many times, young people as the future of tomorrow. I'm saying they're the future and leaders of today. So if we want to plant the tree today, in 10 years, we shall have a forest. And back to the role of the private sector. For me, I strongly believe that education is the lever of change and is the enabler of people to get opportunities. And education breaks intergenerational cycles of poverty. So for the private sector, we need to shift the mindsets from private sector being a consumer of labor to investing in the labor itself. So when we speak about workforce development, we need to connect the dots from the education into the labor. That's number one. Secondly, the private sector needs to invest in bankable solutions at scale, whether they are from government, whether they are from private sector, whether they are from civil society organizations. And for me, I really want private sector to put hands in money and capital in the hands of young people and in the hands of women. Because if we invest in young people, we are investing in the future. Of course, private sector needs to invest a lot in technology. And everyone has spoken about it. We need technology. We need technology. Young people need to have technology. It's not like us who are told we are born before computers, BBC. Young people need computers. Young people need technology in order to get the right information and the right networks. Part of my work I do at Harvard University as a fellow through the Plus Africa Incubator, working with organizations like Generation Unlimited. We are bridging that gap in the skills gap so that we teach young people 21st century skills. And where private sector becomes so critical is the fact that they need to stop investing short term into what they call corporate social responsibility. This is about sustainable investment development. And that's where private sector comes in. More than ever, we need private sector, we need project partnerships, we need private partnerships for us to have inclusive development, because we will shift the needle in terms of policy programs and practice if we collaborate and stop working in silos. So for me, the key takeout is we need to collaborate, we need to break the silos, and we need to be inclusive and invest in the future of work, whether it's internships, whether it's incubation programs. We really need to have everyone together, collaborative action for bigger impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rema. That is already, you gave your own summary, so I don't need to do that. I actually really specifically also like the point that you made that private sector should not be just consumers of labor. I think that is a very interesting point to see how we can bridge that skills gap in partnership. So thank you for this passionate plea actually for partnerships. And let me move on to Drew, who we already heard, so he can definitely be very brief as well. You know, the ILO is, of course, an organization that has partnerships and this cooperation with different partners within their DNA. And I also know that you're working very hard on youth. So with this expertise and with your mandate, what are your plans? How do you see it?
Yeah, thanks, Tijmen. And I'm not good at being short, but I promise this time. Listen, in terms of improving youth voice and youth decision-making in our own governance structure and institution of the ILO, we're not there yet. I'll admit that right away. We have work to do, and Youth at Heart was such an inspiration for us. You know, institutions move slow, but I think we're going in the right direction. As you know, we're a tripartite based organizations. So workers, employers, and governments need to take decisions together. And it's a unique institutional setup, one that frustrates, but it's also, I think, extremely empowering. And our approach, and this is something that I'm trying to get across to our senior management and governing body, is that the youth groups need to be more present, and youth voice needs to be more present in those groups. And there needs to be some type of tripartite youth movement as well, which goes on. And I was mentioning before about this, I think, increased risk of exploitation of young people, you know, as we go forward into a more digitized world. And I think that's one way of abating that, working more with employers and working more with on public policy to get that. I just want to mention two quick good examples of partnerships. One which comes from your shop, Tijmen. I mean, I don't know how many of you have learned about Prospects partnership. Tijmen can probably also mention it, but it's really a new dynamic to take on this nexus of humanitarian and development work. Massive investment by the Dutch government, and young people are square in the middle of this partnership between ILO, UNICEF, UNHCR, the World Bank, and IFC. Please go and look into this partnership. I would like to also mention, this is obviously a super high income example, but work at the European Union to reestablish the youth guarantee. This is really unheard of. The European Union countries are making a commitment to provide every unemployed young person a training, education, or work experience within the first 4 months of them becoming unemployed. well, it rests a recommendation for now. The European Council still needs to adopt it. But I mean, when have you heard such a promise made to young people? We think it's just fantastic. So there is really good examples out there, I think, Tijmen. Leave it there.
Thank you so much, Drew. Indeed, the Prospects partnership is a very interesting partnership to see how we can at least put the prospects of young people at the heart of what we're doing. We're actually making sure that the organizations cooperate, right? That is sort of to see it from their perspective. In this case, these are young people in humanitarian settings and host communities. So, and if you're online looking for the Prospects partnership, you might as well continue Googling to the youthatheart.nl website and see some of the nice articles that have and some of the great input. And then go straight towards the YouTube to actually watch the whole forum of Youth at Heart, which is all there, all 23 sessions. So a lot of people have a lot of nice things to do after this. But I have to say, this session, of course, there were some, how shall I call us, non-youth people speaking. I guess it's straight, and I know that ILO is working on integrating the voice of young people. We're doing that. A lot of us have indicated how and that we see it's important. But now I think it's time to actually hand over again, and I'm handing over the moderator role as well right after that. So VM, if you please take over. And if I may ask you the last question, what do you actually see? What type, you've heard about these partnerships, we mentioned them. What type of partnerships do you actually think that young people find viable to achieve relevant educational work? So you're in charge. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with Youth Voice and Breakthrough to Partnership. Youth Voice is very important. The more we listen to young people, the deeper insight we get. And the power of this younger generation is that we don't need someone's voice. Everybody has their own, their own meaningful voice to contribute to the youth agenda. And what marked me the most during the Youth at Heart virtual forum is that summarize our efforts during this research to raise collective voices of young people. The quote that says, "We as young people, we don't want the keys, we want the doors." It has no sense to create youth policies and take decisions that affect young people's lives without fully engage young people in the process. And actually, the answers to the challenges that young people are facing will definitely come from young people. And therefore, we need you to engage youth and put them at the heart of decision and action, and provide them with better support to meaningfully engage them and shift power to them. Great leadership isn't about power, it's about empowering others and empowering the call to empower young people worth every single battle. So dear policymakers and all the people who are listening today, so young people are passionately calling for you to create a more inclusive platforms and shared safe places, both digital and physical, to inform youth policies that affect their lives, as well as invest more in youth initiatives and programs that promote more accountable, inclusive, and responsive governments at the local and the national level. And they are calling to partner with them as experts and leaders in the whole process to ensure accountability. Therefore, young people are calling you, and they are calling you to build, to open building with them partnerships that are inclusive without leaving no one behind, intentional, where young people are not an afterthought, but they are heard, consulted, and involved in the whole process. Partnerships that are mutually respected, so power is shared and all contributions are valued. Therefore, we are strongly against scenarios where young people are present but not informed, directed but not consulted, and involved but not valued. We are calling for meaningful partnerships that ensure youth leadership, skills development, more youth-led initiatives, and the engagement and integration of youth in the whole process of decision-making and policy-making. Youth leadership is happening now, not in the future. Therefore, we need you to support us, play our roles as solution makers and decision makers in everything that affects our lives, wherever in building our resilience to COVID, reshaping better educational systems that respond better to the job market's need, or enhancing youth voice in the society. So we, as young people, we are not only the leaders of the future, we are the now as well. And we are inviting you to travel this path together and explore our power in action. Thank you so much, and hopefully that wasn't so long.
Thank you very much, William, and those were very clear asks. And we would also like to hear from other people that are joining us on this call and watching us from the stage. We will be setting up a poll question that you should be seeing appearing on your screens. And the question is, what one thing will you focus on in 2021 to address education challenges? And you can select from the options that will appear on your screen, either leading youth consultations, raising awareness, funding youth initiatives, strengthening partnerships, or advocacy and lobbying. So please feel free to select which one you think or you commit to help addressing education challenges next year. And we'll give you a couple minutes to respond to that, and we'll be able to see what most people select. And I dare to say all options are good, so this is not a test. This is just to get a sense of what you're committing to do. So please feel free to select, and we'll be wrapping up our session very soon. So we can see some answers coming in. 20% of people said leading youth consultations, but the two winners, quote unquote, are funding youth initiatives, which is great to hear because that was an ask, and also strengthening partnerships at 30% each. But everyone has had different answers. We have people that had said advocacy and lobbying as well, 10%, and raising awareness, 10%. So thank you all for participating. I think we've got a year of action ahead of us, and I look forward to seeing what everyone does. Nashwa, over to you.
Thank you, Inés. Well, we could talk for hours, but unfortunately our time has nearly come to the end. So I want to share some of Restless Development's next steps on Rewire for 2021. We're going to run a global youth consultations on education and work, and a campaign on the same topics. I'm going to attend the Rewire Summit next year. So before I wrap up this session, I just would like to say that COVID-19 has caused a lot of frustration, restrictions, and tragedies, but it also taught us to think outside the box, to expand beyond our comfort zones, hear different opinions, include young people in important tables, and most importantly, to unite despite our differences and geographic locations. And with unity, nothing is impossible to achieve. So thank you everyone for tuning in. See you next time.